What really happens when Princess Leonor steps in for the king? The truth behind her royal duties. What happens when the King of Spain cannot attend an important event? Does Princess Leonor simply step forward and take his place? Does she suddenly receive the king's powers? Or is there a much more complicated process hiding behind those carefully planned royal appearances? For many people watching Princess Leonor, the answer might seem obvious. She is the heir to the Spanish throne. She has been trained for years. She wears military uniform. She attends major ceremonies. She delivers speeches. She increasingly represents the Spanish crown in public. But there is an important distinction that can easily get lost in the headlines. Representing the king is not the same thing as becoming the king. And understanding the difference reveals just how carefully Princess Leonor's role is being developed. Because when Leonor appears on behalf of her father, King Felipe VI, she isn't simply filling an empty seat. She is participating in a constitutional monarchy where every royal responsibility has boundaries. And those boundaries matter. So what exactly happens when Leonor steps in? What can she actually do? What can't she do? And why could these appearances be some of the most important training moments of her life? Let's take a closer look. Chapter 1. The girl who was preparing for the throne. Princess Leonor was born into a position that came with an extraordinary future. She is the Princess of Asturias and heir to the Spanish crown. That means her life has always been connected to the future of the monarchy. But being the heir does not mean she automatically possesses the powers of the monarch. That distinction is fundamental. Today, the constitutional authority of the Spanish crown belongs to King Felipe VI. Leonor is preparing to inherit that role one day. Until then, she is the heir, not the reigning monarch. So when she represents her father at an event, something important is happening. She is gaining experience. She is demonstrating readiness. And she is becoming increasingly familiar to the public as the person who will eventually occupy the throne. But she isn't simply becoming a temporary queen. There are rules. There are protocols. And there are constitutional limits. Chapter 2. Representation versus reigning. This is probably the biggest misunderstanding surrounding royal representation. Imagine King Felipe has an engagement that he cannot personally attend. Princess Leonor might be asked to attend an event connected to the crown. She could deliver remarks, meet officials, participate in a ceremony, present an award, or represent the royal family at a significant occasion. To an observer, it might look as though she has taken over her father's role. But constitutionally, that is not necessarily what has happened. She is representing him or the crown in a particular capacity. The king remains king. The constitutional responsibilities of the monarch remain defined by Spain's constitutional system. Leonor does not simply acquire all of her father's constitutional powers because she appears at an event in his place. And that is an important distinction, because the symbolism can be enormous even when the constitutional authority remains limited. Chapter 3. Why these appearances matter. If Leonor isn't becoming queen during these appearances, why are they important? Because preparation for monarchy doesn't happen overnight. A future queen needs experience. She needs to learn how to enter a room full of diplomats, how to greet foreign leaders, how to speak publicly, how to behave during solemn ceremonies, how to represent Spain without turning every appearance into a personal performance. These are skills, and skills require practice. Every official engagement gives Leonor another opportunity to develop them. That means a seemingly simple ceremony can actually be part of a much larger preparation process. One day, Leonor will be the person responsible for those duties herself. For now, she is learning how they work. Chapter 4. The pressure of representing the king. Now imagine the pressure. You're young. You're standing in front of cameras. Everyone knows that you are the future queen of Spain. And you're not simply representing yourself. You're representing your father, your family, the Spanish crown, and, in a broader sense, Spain itself. Every gesture can be analyzed. Every sentence can become a headline. Every mistake can be replayed online. This is the strange reality of royal representation. The event may last an hour, but the public reaction can last for days. That is why Leonor's preparation has been so structured. Her international schooling, her military education, her language skills, her public speaking, her ceremonial appearances. All of these experiences can help prepare her for moments when the entire country is watching. Chapter 5. What does Leonor actually do? So what might Princess Leonor do when representing her father? The answer depends heavily on the event. There isn't one universal script. She might attend a ceremony. She could meet representatives of an organization. She might give a speech. She could present a prize or participate in an official event. She may also attend events because her presence itself carries significance. This is important. Royal representation isn't always about performing a specific constitutional function. Sometimes, it is about presence. A member of the royal family showing support, acknowledging an achievement, representing the institution, or bringing attention to an important cause. For Leonor, these moments also allow the public to become familiar with her future role. Chapter 6. The speech is more important than it looks. When Leonor speaks publicly, there is another layer to what viewers see. A royal speech isn't simply a conversation. There is preparation. There are protocols. There are people who help with briefing and context, and the wording matters. A future monarch has to learn how to communicate carefully. She cannot simply speak impulsively about every political issue. Spain's constitutional monarchy requires the monarch to operate within a defined political and constitutional framework. So Leonor's public communication is likely to become increasingly important as her responsibilities grow. She must learn how to be warm without being careless, formal without sounding distant, personal without turning official occasions into personal platforms. That is a difficult skill, and every public appearance gives her another opportunity to develop it. Chapter 7: The Military Dimension. One of the most striking parts of Leonor's preparation is her military education. As future monarch, her relationship with Spain's armed forces will eventually have constitutional significance. That is why her training across Spain's military branches has attracted so much attention. When she appears in uniform, she isn't simply wearing a striking outfit. She is communicating something about her future responsibilities: leadership, discipline, service, and duty. So when Leonor represents her father at an event connected to national institutions, her military training becomes another part of the preparation. She is learning how institutions operate, how leaders behave, how responsibility is carried, and how to represent authority without abusing it. Chapter 8: Can Leonor make decisions for the king? Here's where we need to be especially careful. Princess Leonor does not simply inherit King Felipe's constitutional powers whenever she represents him. Being the heir does not automatically give her the authority to perform every constitutional function of the king. Spain's constitution provides specific rules concerning the exercise of the king's authority. In particular circumstances, there can be a formal mechanism of regency. That is very different from simply attending an event on behalf of the monarch. So if you see a headline saying Leonor takes over the king's role, that headline may be dramatic, but it doesn't necessarily mean she has become a temporary monarch. Sometimes, what has actually happened is much simpler: the heir is representing the crown at a particular engagement, and that distinction is crucial. Chapter 9: The Regency Question. Now we reach the constitutional issue that makes this subject even more interesting. Spain has constitutional provisions dealing with a regency. A regency is not simply another word for representation. It is a formal constitutional arrangement for exercising the king's functions under specified circumstances, such as minority or certain forms of incapacity. That is fundamentally different from Leonor attending an event because her father cannot be there. In other words, representing the king is one thing, acting as regent is another. Becoming queen is something else entirely. 3 different situations, 3 different constitutional realities, and understanding those differences helps us appreciate just how carefully Leonor's current role is being developed. Chapter 10: The Day Leonor will really step in. There will eventually be a day when Leonor no longer represents the king. She will be the monarch. But that day comes through succession according to Spain's constitutional framework, not because she gradually takes over individual events. Until then, she is building experience. Think of it as preparation before the final examination. Every ceremony, every speech, every diplomatic meeting, every military event, every international appearance, each one gives her another piece of experience. And when she eventually becomes queen, the expectation will be that she already understands the machinery of public life. She won't be learning everything from scratch. She will have spent years watching, listening, participating, and gradually taking on greater responsibility. Chapter 11: The Relationship with King Felipe. There is also a deeply personal dimension to all of this. King Felipe is not only Leonor's father, he is also the person whose position she is preparing to inherit. That creates a unique relationship. He understands the responsibilities of the throne because he has lived them. Leonor is learning those responsibilities because she will eventually inherit them. Every time they appear together, there is an educational dimension. She watches, he demonstrates, she participates, and eventually, the roles will reverse. The father who once taught his daughter how royal duties work will eventually step aside and allow her to lead. That transition may still be years away, but the preparation is already happening. Chapter 12: Queen Letizia's role. And then there is Queen Letizia. Her role in Leonor's development is also important. Letizia entered the royal family as an outsider to the institution. Before becoming queen, she had an established professional life. She understands communication, media attention, public scrutiny, and the challenges of maintaining dignity under intense observation. Those are skills Leonor will need, because a future queen is not simply trained to stand at ceremonies. She is trained to understand people, and Letizia's experience may offer Leonor a perspective that complements her father's constitutional experience. Together, her parents represent 2 different sides of royal preparation: institutional responsibility and public communication. Leonor is learning from both. Chapter 13: The moment the public realizes she is ready. There may eventually be a moment when something changes. Not legally, not constitutionally, but psychologically. The public may look at Leonor and suddenly realize she's ready. Maybe it will happen during a major speech, maybe during an international visit, maybe while she stands beside world leaders, maybe during a national ceremony, or perhaps it will be something incredibly simple: a confident gesture, a thoughtful response, A moment when she handles an unexpected situation without hesitation. Those moments are impossible to schedule, but they are exactly what preparation is designed to produce. The goal is not to make Leonor look like King Felipe. The goal is to prepare her to become Leonor, the future Queen of Spain. Chapter 14: The hidden purpose of every appearance. This is why her official appearances matter. They are not just photographs. They are not just ceremonial obligations. They are opportunities. Opportunities to learn. Opportunities to practice. Opportunities to understand the people she may one day serve. And perhaps most importantly, opportunities for the public to become comfortable with her. A monarchy depends partly on continuity. People need to know who will come next. Leonor's growing public presence makes that future visible. She is no longer simply a distant heir. She is becoming a recognizable public figure. And eventually, she will become the central figure of the Spanish monarchy. Chapter 15: The future queen's biggest test. But there is one challenge Leonor cannot escape. She has to balance tradition with modernity. She has to respect the institution without becoming trapped by it. She has to represent Spain while still developing her own personality. And she has to prepare for a role that could last decades. That means representing her father today is only one small piece of a much bigger journey. Every time she steps forward, she is learning what it means to carry responsibility. Every time she addresses the public, she is developing her voice. Every time she stands beside the king, she is seeing the future of the institution she will eventually lead. And one day, she will no longer be standing beside him. She will be standing in his place. Final: when the princess becomes the queen. So, what really happens when Princess Leonor steps in for the king? The answer may be less dramatic than some headlines suggest, but far more significant. She does not simply become queen for the day. She does not automatically inherit the king's constitutional powers. And she does not replace the monarch merely because she attends an official event. Instead, she represents the crown within the role assigned to her. She gains experience. She builds confidence. She develops relationships. And she gradually becomes familiar to the Spanish public as the woman who will one day inherit the throne. The real significance isn't what happens during one ceremony. It is what those ceremonies are preparing her for. Because every appearance brings Leonor one step closer to a moment that will change everything. The day she stops being the heir and becomes the monarch. The day she no longer represents the king, because she is the king, or, more precisely, the queen. Until that moment arrives, every official appearance is another chapter in her preparation. And perhaps that's what makes watching Princess Leonor today so fascinating. We are not simply watching a princess attend royal events. We are watching a future queen learn, step by step, what it means to carry a crown. What do you think? Should Princess Leonor take on even more official responsibilities before becoming queen, or should the Spanish royal family protect her from too much pressure while she is still young? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to follow Princess Leonor's journey toward the Spanish throne, subscribe and stay tuned. Because the day she truly steps into the king's place will be one of the most important moments in modern Spanish royal history.